Okay, hello everyone. Hello everyone, my name is Utkarsh Dev and I'm here to present my midterm evaluation for CS 5610 web development. I will be going over everything that I've learned. Excuse me. I'll be going over everything that I've learned in this semester till now, and I'll be going over in depth the three-tier architecture that we will see in the future. We will see in a few minutes, and I will be live coding a few things uh, uh, to my existing project too. So let's get started. So what I have what I have learned throughout this course is that while web development has a lot of moving parts, it is pretty straightforward, and if you understand things in sort of a mind map, it is easy to navigate around how to do things and build your website. So essentially, we have broken down web dev into two different components: the building blocks, where you actually build your website, and the web architecture, which is essentially navigating the internet in a way on how to actually visit a website and the database of the website. We'll be going into it. And I personally find it easier to understand web development in like a city house analogy, where your website is a house which has its structure, a foundation, a decoration, and all the furnishing, the fixtures, the wirings. And the entire internet is like a giant city of different buildings and houses, um, where each house has its address, and the key thing is to know the address, travel to the house, and then enter the house, which we'll be going over in depth as well. Um, Moving on to the building blocks of a website. Um, your foundation and structure is HTML. The furnishings and fixtures are ES6 JavaScript, and your decor is CSS. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is the foundation, as I mentioned. It provides a basic structure of your website, like what's going to be where an image is going to be, where the nav bar is going to be, a button is going to be, text is going to be, etc. It also provides information of the style sheet, the CSS, and the script, the JavaScript, um, of the website that the website will be using. All the code is contained in tags, which are these arrow brackets, as you can see here in the screenshot. Tags can have classes, attributes, IDs that allow it to communicate with different parts of your project, like the style sheet and the script. And you can have multiple scripts, of course. Most have an opening and closing tag, like you see the head tag here, but some can be self-closing, like the meta tag here. Moving on to CSS, which is Cascading Style Sheet. It is literally the style sheet, the decoration of your website, the background color, the font style, the font family, size, color, text color, all that stuff. It is contained in the style tag, so it can be within the tag itself, like you write your CSS in the tag in the HTML file, or it can be a separate CSS file, or it can also be in line in the tag itself, like in the body tag. You use classes to allow referencing to style, to the style sheet. So let's say let's say like in the screenshot, this strong, let okay, the screenshot doesn't contain a class, but let's say that a tag contains a class. I will create a dot class, in the CSS, write the attribute, like say font weight, write bold. That's how that's how you usually do CSS. You can do that in the paragraph tag itself, or in the style tag you write font weight bold. class font weight bold. It is an important. There's an important note that you are not supposed to use exclamation important. Exclamation important overrides the default priorities of the style sheet. Um, while it can be helpful, it is hard to debug and is considered bad practice. So we cannot use important exclamation important ever. Um, Moving on to the fixtures, the furniture, the wiring of your house, which is JavaScript. JavaScript are the interactive features of a website. So clicking a button, what is it going to do? Typing a text in a dialog box, a cycling of images, the way that cards, the way information is going to move on a website, a drop-down menu, all of that is JavaScript. It is in the script tag where you can either reference a script, an actual script file, or you can write it in the script tag itself. And JavaScript can be in tags as well. However, excuse me, we haven't done that so far in our course, and simply just had script as a separate file and had the script tag in the HTML refer to the script. JavaScript is an async and functional programming language. By async, we mean that unlike other programming languages which execute line by line, JavaScript doesn't need to do that. So you can use an await tag in front of a function to hold the execution of that function until everything else is done or a specific function is done executing. And functional programming just simply means that everything is contained in functions and you refer everything in functions. And JavaScript can also be object-oriented, which is our next building block. Sorry, we'll cover that after this slide. But Bootstrap 5 is something that I feel like we definitely need to talk about because we have used it a lot in our class. It's like hiring a designer for your house rather than doing it for yourself. It is a framework that contains a lot of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are a lot of design and functional templates that are already coded that you can use to make your website. It is extremely helpful when you're starting out web development because you don't have to do everything from scratch and just refer to the classes of Bootstrap to make a very decently looking website with basic functionalities. Of course, we have implemented JavaScript functions on our own along with CSS designs as well. But Bootstrap is a good starting point, and you can always override Bootstrap design and functionalities if you want to do something more personal. Moving on to document object model that I was talking about. So JavaScript can become an object-oriented language this way because it can refer to the blueprint of your house. Just like a blueprint that has everything organized exactly the way the building has to be made, everything in HTML is sort of a blueprint of a tree of objects. So HTML, head, title, body, all of that sort of becomes like a tree that allows the style sheet and script to almost to become object oriented and refer to the HTML as an object, and allows you to change the HTML and allows you to change and modify the HTML as an object-oriented document. ESLint and Prettier are also some modules that we used. It's like hiring inspectors that ensure that once your house is built, everything is up to standard. ESLint is that inspector that will check whether the wiring and fixtures are correct or not. Are there any inconsistencies? Some practices that are not standard. So it checks for bugs. So it basically checks for bugs and formatting and inconsistencies in your code. And Prettier is just ensuring that the code looks good rather than your code being cluttered everywhere in your file. It ensures that everything looks good and is up to a coding standard. All the indentations, the placement of tags, all that stuff. Here is a flowchart that talks about everything that we just discussed. You have your building blocks are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML has elements, and elements have tags, classes, attributes, ID, and these are some of the some basic HTML tags. CSS has class ID reference to HTML. Important that we don't use exclamation important, and bootstrap can be used for like a template, a styling, and functionals as well. You have your ES6, which is JavaScript, it's object oriented, functional. The interactive features of your website are here. Asynchronous, and class ID reference to HTML and the style sheet. Both HTML and ES6 are connected to the document object model, and both use ESLint and Prettier to ensure that the code is up to standard, the practices are up to standard, and the code looks good. Moving on, we will now move to web architecture. And the way I see it is like a giant city with millions of buildings and houses that are your websites. And you want to know how to navigate to a certain house, a certain building, how to get there, how to enter the building, who owns the building, the road network, the navigation system, all that is very similar to how a city operates, where it makes it easier to understand. So there are some important elements of the web architecture that we should discuss before we move on to the 2-tier and 3-tier architecture. Client is you, the person that is looking to visit a building in the city. Client is usually your browser, the one that requests to visit a web address. The client, yes, I'm sorry, but yes, the client is the browser, the thing that is requesting to visit a website, and that we do through our browser, like Edge, Firefox, Chrome, if you use Opera or Brave. The server is the homeowner, the owner of the building, or the owner of like a collection of buildings, like a property broker of sorts. Servers are where the websites are hosted, like that's where they're stored. When the client makes a request, the server is the one that serves the website to the client, and then you see it on your browser. Moving on, static files. Whatever the building blocks are that we discussed previously, the HTML, the CSS, the buildings, essentially, those are the static files that are owned by the property broker, aka the server. They are on the server and then presented to the client on request. Now we move on to the different types of setups of web architecture. The most basic one is the 2-tier setup, which is direct client and server connection. If you want to visit an address in the city, you will first look up the address using DNS, domain name system. That's like the web URL, that's the address. Then you make a request to the server. It's like that's the travel that you make to the building, and ring the doorbell. And then the server is the one that is going to open up the door, let you in, and then you can see the static files on the website. Pretty simple, pretty basic. But then we move to the 3-tier setup, which is client, server, and database. This time, instead of going to a specific address, you are actually going to a property broker to look at a collection of buildings. And in this analogy, the buildings are a website. Buildings are a collection of data in a database that is held by the property broker. The broker agency will show you the buildings based on what you're looking for in the city. So the server has a database of records, and these records are then fetched and served to the clients based on the request that is made. I'll be going in depth in the 3-tier setup because I find it quite interesting, as most of most of the internet is 3-tier setup. So you have your client and you have your server, as you know, but instead of a direct server this time, there is a database, the collection of houses that the broker has. We used MongoDB for our project, but you can use SQL, and there are other databases as well. Either you can host this locally, like on your system, you can have the database, or on the cloud, like Atlas, which is something we used. We used and then hosted the website through a portal called Render. MQL is the MongoDB query language. This is essentially the language of like how you store data in MongoDB. We typically it can be in a JSON format. Like when we hard coded some data to test our website, it was in a JSON file that we uploaded to Atlas, and that was then MQL. This is how you communicate with the database. Aggregation pipeline is, say the broker wants to sort the buildings based on, say, rent below $1,000, houses with two bedrooms. The sorting and filtering, all of that is through aggregation pipeline. Node.js and Express.js. So in the client server setup, essentially this client and server are speaking a different language. They both exist. Both the client and server sort of exist separately in the client server setup. You communicate to the server, and then you get your website. With Node.js, we are able to run JavaScript on the server side. So now everyone speaks the same language, even the client and the server. It simplifies communication and allows you to, like I said, run your server. Run your JS script on the server side. And Express.js is it's like an office manager for the agency. Express.js will allow you to organize the requests that come to the server. It'll decide who will handle such requests because the server will have different websites. So it'll decide who gets to do what, similar to a manager at an office. Roots. Imagine an office like a broker agency would have different departments. There's some that handle the houses, the communication with the homeowners, the renters, the maintenance guys, the finance guys, etc. These departments can be analogous to roots that are exactly what it says, that handle what to do with the database. CRUD operations that we implemented in our project, which is create, read, update, delete. So create, you create an entry in the database. You read something in the database on the website, like you fetch it from the database, display it on the website. Updating an entry in the database, changing some values, maybe the rent changed, spiked up, or something, or just delete it. The house is no longer associated with the with the broker agency, so you delete it. This is all handled by the different departments called roots. Finally, the most important thing is HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is the USPS of the city of internet, the mailing system, the way everyone communicates with everybody on the internet are through a set of protocols called HTTP. Like some examples: get, post, put, delete. You get a website from the server. The server will post the website. A put will update the information. When you're updating something in the database, that's the put protocol, and the delete protocol is the delete protocol. HTTP is essential in web architecture because that's how client-server database everyone communicates through these protocols. This is a web chart of the There's a web chart of the web architecture that we just discussed. Again, we will be going through it again. The two-tier system is what we already talked about. The three-tier system, the two-tier system is the client and the HTTP server. They communicate with each other. The three-tier system, how that's going to work is that the client, let's say, goes to that brokerage website. Let's just imagine that it's a website. DNS it'll get the address of the website through DNS. The DNS is going to the DNS will have the URL of the website, and the website is then connected to a server that is set up with Node and Express. The server communication is set up with Node and Express. Sorry. That'll allow you to run even the JS script. I forgot to write static files here, but static files are gonna be somewhere up here, just on in this part of the web architecture altogether, because both 2-tier and 3-tier will have those. You have your roots. The departments that handle different operations, like the CRUD operations which are create, update, read, delete. You have your database. Which is MongoDB, what we did in our project. Database is hosted in a Mongo server that can be either localhost. We used Docker in our class. We talked about it, and my face is in the way, isn't it? Sorry. Yeah, I'll put it here for now. So you have your local host, Docker, that's on your system, on your computer, or it can be a cloud host like Atlas, and then we used Render to host the actual website on the internet. MQL is the language of communicating with MongoDB, which is typically a JSON file, and then aggregation pipeline is how you sort the data on the server side. So a client is going to request request an address that through DNS. The address is then going to display a website that is hosted on a server. You use Node.js and Express to run that on the to run your JS on the server side. The static files that are going to be displayed, static files are going to be displayed to you by the server. The data that you want to see on the website will be hosted at a Mongo server, either local or a cloud. That'll let you see the database, interact with it. If you have the permissions, we had this in our project where only the admin could update and delete the data, create, update, and delete the data. Those operations were done through roots. The roots that decide how to create, update, delete the data, read and delete the data, excuse me. So the database is hosted on a Mongo server that'll be fetched and displayed on the static side. The database is created through MQL, which is the query language of MongoDB. And then aggregation pipeline is something that the host would use to, say, sort the data. Like I said, if you want houses with rent below $1,000, houses with 2 bedrooms, houses that are close to, say, South End, all of that is done through aggregation pipeline. And that is our 3-tier architecture system. And most of the internet works on 3-tier architecture. And of course, all of internet, 2-tier, 3-tier, uses HTTP protocols to communicate with each other. Get, post, update, delete, and some other protocols as well for file not found, server not found, all of that, HTTP protocols. And that's it for my presentation. We move on to the live coding part now, and for that I have decided to build upon my project 2, which is just a website for for indie movie directors to provide updates and then get pledges for people to support their project. Excuse me. So there's a header, footer, project updates a card, and all this modal feature also was done using Bootstrap. I want to make a new page. I'll just show you how to make a new page using HTML and just give it some styling, some custom styling using CSS. So what I want to do is, first of all, I'll just add it to the navbar, that page to my navbar itself. So li class nav item. So this is all Bootstrap classes that allows a reference to the Bootstrap style sheet, and give it the font, the color, and all that CSS, and then a class nav 8. We don't want this. Just reference to thank you .html, and it'll say thank you. That's all. And then let's go ahead and actually make that thank you .html file. It's exclamation doc type HTML. This is just to start the HTML document, and I will be copying some of the things from the top here. HTML, where is it? Thank you.html. HTML language en, English, and then some meta tags that are important for the website to show up in the searches. UTF-8 is the character encoding for most languages. So for English, and this allows the website to actually know that yes, this is English language. It's a viewport with device width so that it adjusts to the website instead of looking clunky on smaller displays. Title is gonna be thank you, of course. Thank you. And this is a reference to the Bootstrap style sheet. But we will be making our own style sheet. So in the style tag, at import URL style.css, which we have right here, which I made a little bit of it right now, but I just added a custom font. But I also would like the body, Topal's already trying to do something, the body to have a linear background. So body, I already do that, but background linear gradient, you cannot use background color because of a linear gradient, so it needs to be body. This is where all the body stuff is going to be defined. You can change the font family of the entire page in the body itself. A linear gradient to right, which means I want it to go towards the right side. This color looks like white and beige. I'll save that. Have thank you.html refer to the style sheet. I believe that's probably it for the head, so we will be moving to the body tag. and I want the navbar, which again the Bootstrap already wants this here, but instead I'll actually go back to my code. Nav class here is all in the Bootstrap documentation to create a Bootstrap navbar. I'll just take this whole thing, add it here. We also want to give it, we also want to give our website a footer, but this page also needs a footer. So this is referring to the front end, front end script here that has the card, the form, but not going to get into that here right now. Take the footer, add it to the website, and Alt Shift F, yes, and that start that. So as you can see, the indentation changed, and that's prettier for me. The prettier that changed the navigation of it. You have the thank you.html. We have a good foundation, so I'm just going to save this and go back to reload, and we have a thank you button on the navbar. Going to that, we go to the page with the header and footer, and we're gonna now write a big thank you right in the middle. So first of all, it should be a header. It should be a header tag. So h1 class. As you can see, this h1 class text center is the Bootstrap class that Copilot's suggested. If we save it, go to our website, give it a reload. Thank you for your support, but this is not what I want here. I want it to look a little different. So I will go to the h1 class text center instead of that. Let me call it h1 class title, and I will go to style.css. I'll say dot title, that's a class. Bootstrap is already suggesting a bunch of things. However, I will write black here. Just want it to be black. And font style career, font weight bold, font weight, can I go italics here? No. So let's go with bold. Save that. In the this one has h1 class title, so it's going to refer to the title class in the CSS. Go back, hit reload, and it changed. Thank you for your support. So that's it for my midterm evaluation. Thank you so much for watching that, and have a good day.